G'day everybody, my name is Elliot Waters and you're listening to the Dysregulated podcast. As always, thank you for tuning in. Today's episode is the first of a new series, the DBT series, Dialectical Behaviour Therapy. So we're going to have a look at DBT, look at some of the skills and techniques that is involved in this therapy and see how it can help you in your life as well as my own. This is going to be very good for me too, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. So today's episode is an introduction. So what is DBT? Well, DBT is a form of cognitive behavioural therapy, CBT, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. And it has proven to be efficacious for many different mental health diagnoses, in particular surrounding eating disorders, substance use disorders, those that self-harm, have suicidal ideation, PTSD, anxieties, and depression. DBT, though, is most famous for being the gold standard treatment for borderline personality disorder, for which it was originally developed. It is extremely helpful in controlling strong and problematic emotions, something those with BPD such as myself know all about. The general premise is to change unhelpful ways of thinking and behaving by accepting what is and learning skills to change different parts of how we orientate ourselves within our worlds. So when looking at BPD specifically, DBT is used to treat such problem areas such as chronic feelings of emptiness, intense emotional outbursts, frequent and strong mood swings, that black and white thinking, resulting unstable relationships, low self-esteem, and self-harm. As we will see, DBT is a very comprehensive therapy born out of the need to tackle a personality disorder that had traditionally been difficult to treat and brought with it many complexities. Now, Dr. Marsha Linehan created DBT in the 1980s in order to offer relief and ultimately remission of symptoms for those living with chronic suicidal thoughts, many of whom just so happen to have BPD as well. What is most interesting about this fact is that Marsha herself, the creator of DBT, suffered from BPD. She suffered from borderline personality. So she's very much an authority on this subject, that's for sure, and she is proof that this stuff works. So what does dialectical mean? In its most basic form, dialectical refers to the integration of opposites, that all things are interconnected, that change is inevitable and recurrent, and finally, opposites can be used and understood to get closer to the truth. Right, clear as mud? I think so. Let's have a look at it this way. So another way to look at it is that two opposites can be true at the same time. In the context of the therapy, we as the individual undergoing therapy can accept where we are, our own context, but also strive to grow beyond this, for example. This way of thinking is helpful for those that see the world in extremes or black and white. It helps the client unshackle themselves from extreme points of view by introducing balance to their thinking. This will become easier to understand once we get into some of the techniques and skills DBT has to offer us. So DBT involves four main components, and they are distress tolerance, emotional regulation, interpersonal effectiveness, and mindfulness. So a little bit more detail, what are these components all about? Well, distress tolerance is to learn skills to gain insight into your emotions during the most difficult and stressful moments. It's all about managing your emotions without the need to use maladaptive coping strategies. So instead of turning to substances, for example, or lashing out physically, engaging with verbal abuse, we use the skills and techniques we learn in this series to manage the situation and ensure the best outcome for ourselves and those around us. Emotional regulation is about gaining insight into our emotions. The idea is that if we are aware of our emotions and the behaviours that manifest as a result, then we are better equipped to manage and respond appropriately to an emotional experience. Interpersonal effectiveness is the ability to interact with other people and to strengthen the skills involved in asking for what you need. Boundaries are a pivotal part of this component, all the while being respectful towards the self and others. And finally, mindfulness. Here we look to be self-aware and present or anchored in the current moment, the here and now. We learn to fully engage with our senses and be in tune with what's happening around us as well as within. The main aim is to stop ourselves from drifting between the past and the future. The past, if you're living in the past and got lots of regrets and keep ruminating about that, is very much depression. If you're living in the future, catastrophizing, that is very much anxiety. Two core components of BPD. So the idea is to get away from that and be able to live in the present. And that way we are able to respond instead of react to different situations. Now, DBT is usually administered as a group program. So most groups tend to run for 6 to 12 months. I myself have completed 6 months of DBT. I have, and it was amazing. And this included weekly sessions as an outpatient at a hospital where the group would meet, and myself included, and it would be run by 2 clinical psychologists. It was during these weekly meetings that the skills were taught. As well as this, I had weekly one-on-one sessions with my personal psychologist where we would practice and explore situations personal to me where these skills could be used to gain a positive outcome. It's very important that someone doing DBT also has an individual psychologist as well. Very, very important. Many DBT programs also offer between session telephone coaching where the client is able to call up a therapist and receive on-the-spot guidance to use DBT skills during particularly difficult episodes. So in Australia, DBT is offered both within the public and private hospitals. So just to illustrate how much demand there is for these programs, here in Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia, the waiting time to get into a DBT program in a public hospital is anywhere between 12 to 18 months. So I was forced to fork out lots of money that I didn't really have to access the program in the private system. But I tell you what, DBT works and it was worth it. If you have BPD or traits of borderline personality, then I cannot stress enough how important it is that you try and get into a DBT program. The evidence in the literature is very clear. People with BPD who commit to DBT will gain remission for their symptoms. This stuff works, and that is why I'm doing this DBT series here on the Dysregulated podcast, because the skills and techniques I'll explore on the show do work, and not just for people with BPD. So to me, this information needs to get out there, and I'm happy to do it. And although these episodes certainly do not replace actual time in therapy, they do not, but I'm hopeful that it will still offer assistance and a good starting point for those that may need it. As I said, I myself have done 6 months of intensive DBT, and as a result, I'm a better person for it, and I'm creating a life that is very much worth living. So I encourage you all to listen to what these skills are all about, and then to try to use them in your own lives. Again, you don't need to have BPD or traits of BPD for these skills to benefit. We all can gain some better insight and control over our lives using the principles laid out in dialectical behaviour therapy. So my aim is to introduce a new skill weekly. Each week here on the show, we will explore a new technique and I'll offer some insights into how I have integrated the skill or technique in my own way of living. As you may already be aware, one of my many diagnoses is borderline personality disorder. And as I said previously, I've completed 6 months of intensive DBT work. And I can say with great confidence that this stuff helps minimize the effects of BPD tremendously. End of late, I must admit I've become a bit slack in regards to my focus on continuing to use the skills that I learned in therapy a couple of years ago. So as well as offering some knowledge and insights into this therapy for you, the listener, I have to say I'm also hopeful that by doing this DBT series that I will reacquaint myself with some of the skills that perhaps of late I haven't been utilising to their full potential. So I'm definitely going to gain a bit out of this as well. So that is exciting for all of us, and I'll be with you every step of the way as we navigate what is truly a wonderful therapy that does work. Oh, very exciting stuff to come. I am very excited. This is going to be great, and it's going to be great for me too because, as I said, I really need to hone in on these skills and techniques because they're so pivotal to creating that life worth living, which we're all aiming to do. All right, thank you everybody for listening. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode here of the Dysregulated podcast. DBT, we're going to be hearing lots about DBT coming up, but I'll tell you what, it works and it's going to be great to share some of my experiences with this therapy with you as well. Okay, thank you for listening. If you're enjoying the show, remember to give us a like, give us a rating and share it around with your mates. And you can follow the show on Instagram at thedysregulated.podcast. That is thedysregulated.podcast. All right, thank you everybody. Goodbye for now.